What's going on, guys? I'm Chris and welcome back to another video. So today I'm going to be giving you my ranking of the Karate Kid trilogy. Now there are 5 Karate Kid movies, but I'm only talking about that original trilogy in this video. And make sure to stay tuned for the end of this video for a big announcement. Before I give you guys my ranking of these movies, let me know yours in the comments down below. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any future rankings like this one. But without further ado, I'm going to dive into this ranking. So coming in last place for me is going to be the Karate Kid Part 3, which came out in 1989. Now this is by far the cheesiest entry in the franchise. I mean, the movies kind of got cheesier as we went along, and that just happens to be the case with a lot of these 80s franchises like Rocky or Back to the Future. But the thing with the Karate Kid Part 3 is it takes a little bit too long to get going. It feels like for a whole entire hour, we're kind of sitting with Daniel and Mr. Miyagi trying to start this new life, opening up the bonsai store, and it just takes a little bit too long to get going. It also brings back John Kreese from the first Karate Kid, so it feels like we're retreading a lot and just trying to go back to the basics of that first movie, but it doesn't click as well. Terry Silver is introduced here, and he is such a cheeseball of a villain, but I also thought he was a great villain at the same time. It's a weird dynamic he has because he has these very cheesy 80s villain smiles and maniacal laughs, but at the same time, I kind of understood where he was coming from, even though he's just friends with the dude, and I guess he's just that great of friends with John Kreese that he says, I'm gonna make Daniel and Miyagi's life a living hell, so he goes after them, even though it would make more sense if Kreese is the one who did it, but I guess it makes sense because in the first Karate Kid, and especially at the beginning of Part 2, Miyagi kind of shuts down Kreese, so I guess that kind of makes sense. One of the villainous characters is Mike Barnes, and he is an absolute cheeseball, him and his friends, you know, antagonizing Daniel, trying to get him to sign this agreement to defend his title in the All Valley tournament. That was a whole thing. That was basically like a whole hour and a half of this movie. The Karate Kid movies end super abruptly. I thought this one ended very abruptly as well. Right after the final fight, it like cuts to credits, and it's always a little bit jarring. But I still had a lot of fun with this movie. You know, we get more Miyagi and Daniel moments, you know, master and apprentice style, and they always do a great job with that. I was still really interested in the story and entertained from start to finish. So despite the fact that this is by far the worst and definitely the cheesiest of the franchise, I still have a lot of fun with it just because I enjoy the world and especially the characters like Mr. Miyagi and Daniel, seeing their adventures and seeing how they get out of these wacky situations. It's also worth noting that at the beginning of every single one of these movies, they have like one line where they write off the previous love interest, and I always just found that really noticeable. Coming in second place for me is going to be the Karate Kid Part 2, which came out in 1986, a movie that is vastly different than the original, so I have to give it credit for that. This movie takes place entirely in Okinawa, essentially, so we're leaving California and going all the way across the world, pretty much. This movie takes a deep dive into Mr. Miyagi's past, and we find out that his father is going to die. We have an old romantic flame from Mr. Miyagi in the picture, and his former best friend and now essentially rival, Sato, who is basically out for revenge against him because Mr. Miyagi left the day before they were supposed to have a fight to the death to win someone's heart over. Miyagi takes a front seat here, and Daniel's kind of in the background in this one, but I really like to learn more about Mr. Miyagi and the lore of his world and his personal life. I thought that was really interesting. Daniel has a new romantic interest in Kimiko here, and I like their relationship as it develops throughout the movie. But then you have one of the most hateable characters in this franchise, who is the nephew of Sato, who just is antagonizing Daniel the whole time, basically wants to kill him over and over. That obviously leads up to their final fight, which is a great moment, and of course the Karate Kid movies always plant these little seeds early on for callbacks that are going to happen in like a final moment, and there's definitely one that pays off here. I think this movie is a lot cheesier than the first. Like I said, these movies progressively get more and more cheesy as we go on in the franchise, but I still have a fun time with the Karate Kid Part 2. It dives into more lore on Mr. Miyagi, gives him a greater backstory. There's some pretty cool fight scenes in this movie, especially the final fight, but in all honesty, nothing holds a candle to the original Karate Kid, which comes in at number 1 on my list. The movie came out in 1984. It's an 80s classic that most people have seen. It's referenced all the time and easily quotable. It's just because it's such a simple story that relates to pretty much everybody who watches the movie. Daniel's a kid from New Jersey who has to move across the country with his mom because she got a new job. He starts to get picked on by some kids, and then he has to learn how to defend himself. And then Mr. Miyagi becomes a mentor to him as he defends Daniel against the bullies and starts to teach him karate, ultimately leading up to a final showdown in a tournament where they can settle the beef once and for all. It's a simple story that pretty much follows the basic template of the hero's journey. It's so easy to watch. It's just a fun time from start to finish. It embraces the 80s cheese more so than the other two that go a little overboard with the cheesiness, but this one is the most balance of actual drama and cheesy. They do a good job of fleshing out Johnny, who is like the main kid from the Cobra Kai dojo, as well as Daniel, so their rivalry you can really get behind. And the love interest in this movie is by far the strongest of all the franchise. I wish they brought her back at some point. My favorite moments of this movie is whenever Daniel is learning from Mr. Miyagi, you know, wax on, wax off, painting the fence, you know, side to side with painting the house. He's learning the techniques, and I think my favorite scene by far is when Mr. Miyagi starts to teach him, like, what I've been making you do is not just doing work for work's sake. I'm actually teaching you defense in karate, which is probably the most important part. All the bits about balance. It's very much like when Luke is training with Yoda on Dagobah, and I appreciate the hell out of that. The soundtrack to this movie also slaps. You're the best around. This is one of the definitive, like, 80s movies, especially like an 80s teen/sports coming-of-age movie for sure. And I think everyone has seen The Karate Kid. The iconic crane kick at the end always gives me chills. I just love watching Daniel work his way through the Cobra Kai dojo in that final tournament, leading to the ultimate moment of triumph. That's just such a pump your fist moment, and it's a very satisfying ending to an 80s classic. But that's gonna do it for my ranking of the Karate Kid trilogy. Definitely let me know yours in the comments down below. Should I watch the next Karate Kid? Should I rewatch the Karate Kid from 2010? The answer is probably going to be no to both of those because I'm going to stick to this trilogy because I have a big announcement to make. I am about to start watching Cobra Kai for the very first time, but I'm not just watching it. I'm going to be filming episode reactions to every single episode of Cobra Kai and trying to get 2 to 3 of those reactions up here on the YouTube channel every single week. I know Season 5 comes out in the beginning of September, so I'm trying to catch up before then so I can watch Season 5 when it comes out. My reaction videos will be delayed. They won't all be out in time for Season 5, but I do plan to have an episode reaction to every single episode of Cobra Kai by the end of September. Hopefully, as we head into October, I've fully wrapped up that series. But I'm very excited to get on this journey. I know I need to rewatch the Karate Kid trilogy and actually watch Part 3 for the very first time, so that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that world, so I'm sure I'm going to enjoy Cobra Kai. I've had some people tell me, if you like that trilogy, you'll like these TV shows, so I'm definitely anticipating that. Stay tuned for updates on when the first Cobra Kai reaction is dropping, probably sometime next week. Very amped to get into that series, but thank you guys so much for watching again. Make sure to hit the like button. Are you pumped for the Cobra Kai series? Let me know down below. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Feel free to join the Patreon community down below for extra videos and behind-the-scenes content. I also have a merch store. Use code STRANGER, all caps, for 20% off. But thank you guys again for watching, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.